Our final speaker today is Goulwen Mahe. He's actually started from graffiti and typography, and that's it. And Goulwen, you're invited. Shalom.
I'm also very impressed to be here. I'm not just to show my work, I'm especially to show my work in public and especially my face. For many years, people didn't know my face, and even in my town. And a few years ago, I decided to be professional, and it's more easy to show his face to be a professional. So let me introduce myself. So my name is Goulwen Mahe. My pseudonym as an artist is Leyto. I live and work in Rennes, a town in the west of France. I mostly work on different kind of graphic communication, but just writing or language. So I try to mix this different kind of graphic communication to build another kind of writing. So one important thing about my work is that I had two different parallel creations for nearly 15 years. So the first one was graffiti, and the second one was abstract expressionism. So my main artistic training comes from the practice of graffiti. So I painted my first wall in 1997 and never stopped since. So I'm not doing graffiti anymore. I'm just paint fresco and more now. So I would say that I'm a graffiti artist who turned into an abstract painter. Graffiti is a competition which is open to everybody, and the goal is to write his name the most possible with the best style as possible. So the letter is the main subject, which really opens it to everybody. Because you don't know how to draw a face or figurative elements, everybody can do at least some simple letters. So this particularity makes graffiti a very popular and democratic art. So it's illegal lettering written on the street. I make this precision because graffiti is all about speed. And I think you understand the link between speed and illegal. So speed is a huge part of my work. For example, this is like 8 minutes, 10 minutes maximum work. So my second big influence is abstract expressionism, and especially the one from New York in the 40s with artists such as Jackson Pollock or Willem de Kooning, which really inspired me. Also some French artists like Alechinsky or D'Autremont, which has been a huge influence also. Jean-Michel Basquiat also had a huge influence in my way of seeing painting. You won't see it in the works I will present you today, but I started to paint on canvas to try to understand his art. What I like in expressionism is the wildness and the freedom you can feel by looking at it. In the 90s, graffiti was a very dogmatic world with rules and codes that you could not trespass. And if you did it, your painting was destroyed by the overwriters. Abstract expressionism attracted me because you could do whatever you want on the canvas and there was no dogma. And abstract expressionism is an experimentation of surrealist theory which says that a painting is more representative of yourself if you paint immediately without thinking. The more you use your brain, the more you try to make what you paint looks like something you've already seen. And all the originality is lost. So the quicker, the better, and all is about the gesture. And graffiti is also about speed and gesture. So it was obvious to match these two universes with each other. So the work I will present you is a mix between graffiti lettering and abstract expressionism. So, the canvas you see on the screen comes directly from tags. So it's actually a lettering, but an abstract one. So this is an abstract painting, or a surrealist writing. your choice. You could be surprised because you would identify this as calligraphy, but it's not really calligraphy. I don't consider myself as a calligrapher. I just use calligraphy techniques to paint abstraction. So, I think the first reflex you have when you see this painting is trying to understand it, trying to read it. Whatever the culture you are from, the language you use, it will speak to you. You will try to recognize some elements or signs to be able to make sense of it. We all have the same behavior in front of a writing, and we all share a personal link to writing. It's a part of human heritage, and the richness and the diversity of writing shows us the differences and the common points between people, and it shows also how it can be difficult to communicate with each other. This thing that everybody shares makes the experience of looking at an abstract painting more easy, more approachable, especially for people who feel reluctant to contemporary art or abstract art. And the fact that people try to read, it shows that they are immediately developing a relationship with the painting. So they become viewers unknowingly, and they participate with their own story and their own knowledge to the meaning of what they are looking at. So the effort they will do makes the painting. So I want people to appropriate the meaning of this abstract lettering. It belongs to everybody. On that one, you can recognize some kind of title, and you can also recognize some kind of stanzas of paragraphs. So it's organized like a text, and it plays visually with the chords of the text. All the signs which compose this painting are from lettering, so you can think it is a writing, but you can't identify this writing. So maybe some of you will identify my lettering as kind of Arabic calligraphy. I wouldn't swear them, but I don't speak Arabic, I can't write or read Arabic. I just took two elements from it, the three square points and the curving line, which is a very beautiful line. All the organization comes from a work on Latin alphabet. So I've been practicing lettering intensively for years, and I understand how a letter or a sign is built. It's just about visual logic. Each element has its own place in a space. Each shape is defined by its harmonious combination of lines. I mean that the graphic construction of letters is scripted with a logic that makes them understandable and recognizable. So I use this logic, and I exhaust all the possibilities of combination of line that could exist in that line construction system. I do it in a very speed and frenetic improvisation, so I can think or choose what I do. I just stay focused on the harmony, and my hand is doing the job. By doing this, I managed to write words, signs, or symbols that I don't even know. Then you can see a mix between hieroglyphics, between letters, ideograms, glyphs, pictograms, and many other signs. So the result is a mix between a lot of different kinds of graphic communication. And if you change the space organization, then it will be something else. For example, this painting could be associated to a kind of glyph, a kind of mix of Mayan glyph, Arabic calligraphy, and Gothic calligraphy. And the whole lettering structure is based on the work on Latin alphabet. And it is still an improvisation, speed improvisation. For the black one, the colors, of course, I do it after, and it's not so speed, I just colors. On that one, the organization is also different. The sense of reading is not on a horizontal line, but on a vertical one. And the same lettering evokes another type of writing. So the name of this painting is French Campin, because when I finished it, I felt it was dancing, and it could be a transcription of a dance, a static dance for the eyes. So I always try to make my painting move and make it. I'm always focused on the rhythm, but it interests me a lot. Always rhythmic. And I always listen to music when I improvise. So I try to transcribe the emotions I feel by listening to music with a proper significant line and organize it in a lettering system. So the name of this painting is Major C Rhythmic. It's a reference to a musical scale, Major C. I try to give the impression of staves of a musical score by giving the lines a particular pace. By playing with the curving lines and the straight lines, I try to suggest a musical rhythmic motion that could also evoke musical notes. By using a different size of paintbrush, I intend to create a visual contrast between the width of the lines, which could be interpreted as a kind of pulsation. And the colors bring the depth to the whole structure, and also to the transcription of different kind of emotions you can feel. So the combination of rhythm suggested by the line and the depth of colors create a tension, a vibration, which for me could be a transcription of the sound and the pace of music, and also of the emotions you can feel by listening to it. So working on the links on music is quite important for me, as I used to be a musician before to be a painter. I had a musical training for almost 10 years, and I've been playing saxophone in bands and making concerts. I also currently work with a musician who is specialized in improvisation, a jazz musician, and we want to develop a performance in which I will transcribe immediately his improvisation. And at the same time, he will also try to improvise, reading my abstract musical score. Same kind of organization in a different style and a different scale too. As I told you, my practice on wall was different from my practice on canvas. So the medium is not the same, and the technique is very different. On canvas, I use paintbrush and acrylic, and on walls, I use spray can. So when you use paintbrush, you paint with your hand, your wrist, and your arm. And with spray can, you use your whole body. And everything has to be done very fast, because paint runs out very quickly out of the can. So the way of making shapes is different in that style. The letter disappears and transform into an abstraction. It is still organized in a lettering system, but a new one. So it will be easier to see with that one, which is a bridge actually. So you can see some abstract dancing shapes. For me, this is still lettering. Abstract one, but the technique I used to draw this form comes from graffiti lettering. So it's the same technique I used on the latest picture, and it's called throw-up. So a throw-up is a lettering invented by street fighters to make it big as fast as possible. I'll show you. So I'll show you a picture because throw-up is very hard to describe. So that's a throw-up. It's three letters. It's a L, an E, and an I. And what is important in that technique is that every letter is done with no more than 2 lines. one or two. That's it. Some writers can write a whole word with just one line, like 5 letters in one line. So a flow-up is supposed to be finished in 5 minutes. So this is the best way to write big letters as fastest as possible. So it's pure graffiti lettering. So let's get back to the last one. So these shapes comes from flow-up lettering, but without outline. So the letters become abstract shapes. So everything is done very quickly, is as if I knew by heart what I was doing, but it's completely improvisation. Everything is done directly with a black spray can and without sketching. So the relationship between these shapes and the curves makes it energetic and could also suggest a dance or a graphic dance. I always try to make painting living. Impression of motion is very important for me. This is a different work, but done with the same technique again. On this painting, I work on the space organization of signs. So there's more breathing on this painting, and all the shapes are isolated on a white background, just like letters. So it's like an explosion of the lettering structure. In a word, letters are organized on a line, and the meaning of a word is due to the interaction between the letters. So there is a system to understand it. Reading and writing is described in the system. If you apply another system which links all the signs we paint, then it's also writing, but with its own logic. So what interests me is not the signs by themselves, but the interaction we have between them. If you look at this painting, it's the same process, same breathing. So, colors can color shape, and shape can color colors. So, colors and shapes become signs with the same value. I consider that everything you can put on a canvas is a sign, which means something, even a paint drop or a big splash or a mistake. Each sign contains information, like the color used, like the way it is done. Is it precise? Is it rough, for example? Even the colors, are they bright? Are they matte? It's not the same. So each sign contains a lot of information, and I try to consider all of this information and make them significant in the relationship we have between them. For example, if you paint a dirty splotch and then just close to it you paint a very precise calligraphic line, then the contrast between the precision and the roughness will create a tension, and this tension will create depth. And the same for colors contrast. So I try to organize all this information in a coherent system. So each element has an interaction with the other one, and everything is linked with the same logic. So it's the relationships between all these shapes which make them significant. Just like letters, it's the interaction we have between them that make a word and a meaning. So same system, but different interaction and different space organization. Same system again, but on this one there's less breathing and the space is saturated with information. The impression of writing disappears, and the lettering turns into a pure abstraction. I wanted to show you this one, which is completely different also. It's a work on capital letters. So on that one, you can see the influence of Basquiat. So this is 4 abstract shapes, and you can barely recognize the third shape from the left, which is the R. and all the other ones turn into complete abstraction. And the last one, this is the work I do now onwards. I try to make the shapes the more pure as possible, and the breathing between the forms is the main subject. This is also done in a one-line gesture with no sketching and no retouch, absolutely no retouch. On that one also, everything is done directly by a spray can on the wall. And if you don't know it is from lettering, then you won't guess. But if you know it is from lettering, I think you won't look at it the same way, and maybe you try to discover a relationship between the signs. And then you are reading an abstract painting. Maybe it's a little bit short. I finished.